have some stuff to talk about. I want to talk about Costco. I want to talk about Hermes. I want to talk about some of the new AI models coming out. Um, what do you want to cover first?
Let's cover the flashy first.
Okay.
Okay, so all right, so right now, or at least within the last 5 days, new models have come out from the local side of
Mhm.
things. So as we previously discussed in the last podcast and the podcast before about these frontier models being something that's not accessible, something that is maybe potentially restricted by our government or for whatever security reasons. Since then, we've had Kimi K 2.7 as well as Minimax 3, Minimax 3, and both those models came out and they are large. These are not something that you're going to be able to run on your laptop unless you have some sort of cloud-based infrastructure or some large machine that has enough to be able to make it chug along. So it's very interesting that they've decided that they're going to have these large models. So that's the flashy news of the day. That Frontier Access is now available for those locally. You can literally download it for just shy of a terabyte and usable on a machine that can actually use it.
Wow, that is a huge model. Oh
I was
man,
gonna say
a
this thing ain't
terabyte.
4 gigabytes; it's like a terabyte.
Wow.
And have
Well,
I downloaded it? Yes.
oh boy. Well, I'm really
You got to check
interested.
it out. If you haven't, if you don't check it out and see how it runs, then you're really just grasping at straws for how good it really is.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and I'm excited to learn more as you play around with these new models. What our capabilities become, and yeah, that's really exciting. That's neat.
Yeah, it's interesting that some of these models that are coming out, they are doing what's like they've got these things called mixture of experts. Like
Hmm.
you can have one, two, you can have two, three, four, five, eight, 10, etc. With these mixture of experts, and what it is, it's basically just the LLM sending messages across and saying, "Oh, did you get this? Did you get that? Did you consider this?" And it's basically just bouncing around in the LLM, hoping that it's going to be able to reason enough for these reasoning models. Again, there's layering that they do when they're making these models and training them. But we're seeing these local models have much higher scores, getting closer and closer to the frontier models, if not almost beating them. But having open access to these models is very it is basically the future that they're betting on and saying, look, you don't need to be paying for all this API access. Go and get your own machine and then run it on there. But these are like $50,000 to $100,000, if not more, costly machines to be able to run this kind of stuff efficiently and effectively. Nevertheless, orchestration between like a bunch of different agents.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point. This isn't just there's a barrier to entry, and not only is there a monetary barrier to entry, but actually a know-how, a understanding of how we actually make all these pieces fit together so it works the right way, and really you get some amazing results from it. So that's a great point. I think that we're going to see more people shift to that type of model, a private, purpose-built system for the thing they need it to do. And that makes so much sense for so many different reasons, like these, like a Chat GPT or a Claude. They're kind of built for like they're like a one size fits all, and one size fits all does some nice things, but there's some other areas where it falls short because it's just not tailored enough for that use case.
Yeah, and on those use cases, you're seeing more and more specific models that are trained for certain circumstances. So, for instance, we're seeing like science and math based models that are very specifically trained based on those on that data. So if you're training it, you probably want to use some sort of machine language to be able to learn and train your on a large corpus of data that is highly structured, highly clean, and highly usable in whatever context length, and they're just going through with these very specific models. So you're going to start to see these larger language models become smaller and smaller and smaller. And my point is that we're already seeing that in the large language models that just got released. In fact, a lot of support from the local side isn't there for the back end to be able to run these efficiently and effectively. They're still waiting for updates. Like for instance, LM Studio can't even run some of the quantizations of these models, meaning that instead of saying, "Hey, we're going to send all of this through the entire model," we're going to send all of this through these sections and say, "Okay, we're going to run that a couple times through these small sections, so that way it runs faster." So there's support that's not even there yet. They're scrambling. A lot of these tools from the desktop point of view are scrambling to be able to do that. So you're going to start to see models being able to be compressed, distilled, layered in a bunch of different ways that are very unique and interesting. Which brings us to context engineering, which is like the larger topic that most people are asking the question of like, okay, well, how do I context engineer and get the right answers?
Yeah, because context is everything. I mean, you don't give these AI systems enough context, you get crazy results. I mean, you get crazy results for a few different reasons, but that's having more context gives you a more tailored answer, gives it a more fighting chance to give you the right information. Tell me more about that, Sam.
Yeah. So one of the big things, and I consider these almost like it's yeah, these like are dad jokes gone wrong with some of the large language models. It's like, hey, I want you to delete this one thing. Hey, I deleted the entire code base, and it's like, no, I didn't want you to do that. Bring it back, and it's like, oh man, I can see how you'd be frustrated with that, but it's already gone. So it's like, would you like to start over?
Yeah.
And we're seeing these issues where it's the typical user request is coming through is not technically like in line with what the language model would expect for what it actually needs because it's not trained. It's only trained on certain aspects or certain language. It's not trained on sarcasm, for instance. Like there
Hmm.
was a famous input and system someone built. There's a repo out there just on sarcasm alone. It had like thousands of examples on just sarcasm, and was trying to build a context engineering mindset around the large language models be able to get just only this small snippet of sarcasm for what it's
That
worth.
man, that is interesting, and what you just said, like, is making me think about questions that the ancients dealt with, Aristotle. I'm thinking of Aristotle and Plato, and the idea of like there's these forms of things, and how do we recognize and know what this thing is when, like, for instance, a chair.
Or
Um,
like the allegory of the cave. Is
yeah,
that one of the
yeah,
things?
yeah,
You
yeah. It's
okay.
yeah, we're getting along those lines. Like, so, like, we're thinking about, like, okay, what qualifies as a chair? What is a thing that has chairness? And so how do we recognize and understand, oh, that's a chair? And then I go to a furniture store and I see a chair like I've never seen before, but I still
Mhm.
know it's a chair. It might have different upholstery, might have a different design, but I still know I can sit in it. It's made for sitting. And so this idea of like having a machine understand what what these different concepts are and being able to recognize them and
Mhm.
see them, is really, really interesting.
Yeah, and I don't think I've shared this before, but as crazy as it is, it's actually one of the examples that I've used in building our own AI to be able
Mm.
to understand the question, what is a sandwich? What is
Mm.
actually a sandwich and what's a hot dog? You know, it's you know there's actually a skit. This is when I first saw it. I saw the skit and I was like, wait, hold on. That's a really good point because on large language models and learning and machine learning, and this guy on YouTube, I forget the guy's name, and it's like, hey, I can tell if it's a hot dog or not. Oh, great! Like we're gonna be able to like see all these different things, and we'll know like, you know, like there's different applications you can think of. Like, oh, if I'm at a baseball game, how many fans have like ordered a hot dog? So I can like just pan with an optical reader, using AI. We can just say, oh, hot dog or not hot dog. Well, this guy had the machine, and it only tells if it's not a hot dog. Not is it a hot dog, but it not a hot dog. And it's like, but it doesn't tell you if it's a hot dog or not, and it can't do anything more than that. Like it only is trained on what it's trained.
I mean, you got to start someplace.
Like
I
moat or not the moat, right?
right, right. That reminds me of Thomas Edison. You know, he goes, I forgot how many, like hundreds of models of light bulbs he created, and somebody asked him like, "Hey, weren't you discouraged? Like you failed hundreds of times?" And he's like, "No, actually, the failure was very helpful. It taught me how not to build a light bulb, and it got me closer to building something that actually worked." And so, yeah, that's really interesting. You got to start someplace.
Yeah, and it's also interesting too because there's different ways that you can run science experiments, and this was actually what turned me on to some of our AI that we built today, that is beating a lot of the frontier models and our own stuff that we use locally, offline, and away from any source. But and it has to do with like iteration. Most of the AI today is based on there's a lot of things it can be based on, but there's like this learning aspect that it's going through these neural networks, which goes through Markov chains. But like the reality is that they have these things called epochs when they're training these models. Um, Again, I'm overgeneralizing and being vague here because there's a lot more, but it's iterative. You have to go over and over again. It's like, okay, I have this training data. When you get it, you're doing this. When you get it, you're doing this. It's the same thing over and over again, and it's iterative. It's not creative. It's not using different methodologies. And in science, there's a lot of different methodologies that you can use and standard ones that you can use to go and verify what you actually need. And a lot of these large language models are only using one aspect of science instead of the others. And so my bet is that data science is going to start moving into those other areas for the different types of learning and different types of scientific approaches.
Mm. Sam, thanks a lot for giving us a little bit more of a glimpse. I want to quickly call out something that we should have said at the beginning of the show, but this is a live show. And while Sam and I are talking, we want to hear from our audience. We want to hear from people. So if you're in the chat, or you have a question and you show up to us to the episode live, we're more than happy to take your question. You can get your business issue solved in real time with us. So if you're listening, and leave us something in the chat. Let us know what questions you might have, whether it's something we bring up or something specific to your business. We'd love to interact with you. All right, so Sam, what else did you want to get into? I know you wanted to talk about Hermes.
Yeah. So yeah, this is something that this is something I've been studying for a good bit, and one of the things, and that model is so much different. So for those that don't know, from a real retail approach, Hermes, they're a luxury brand.
Yes.
In my mind, again, this is a man mind. I don't own a lot of handbags, but like they're a luxury, like from a fashion standpoint, it's like they've got all these different goods, leather goods, in my opinion. But like it's much broader than that. But for those that don't know, it's a retail company, and they have a very specific approach for their clientele. And I'm going to talk about that
Yeah.
here in a minute, but more
You,
on that from
you,
Kyle.
yeah, I mean, Hermes, I didn't know they make handbags. I actually learned this recently. I've always known them as a fashion designer, but they make some really interesting ties. I actually have a few Hermes ties, and so I didn't. It's very interesting, but yeah, really cool patterns, very unique, very high quality, and so
Mhm.
yeah, tell me more.
Yeah, and so this is something I've been studying, and it's not a conclusion that we've made yet. But one of the things that we've noticed is that they invite you get like you're able to get in. They look at you and they decide whether they want to invite you to the back room. And if you do get invited to the back room because they deem you worthy to be able to have this product, okay, you
Hmm.
get back there, you do not get a selection. Like you don't get multiple options. You get the one they give you, and you just got to take it. And if you don't, there's a pretty high chance that you're not going to be able to buy anything Hermes related from that store anymore. Like you got to be invited back. You got to buy the thing, and it's very much it's turning into a merge between fashion and art. And so from an art side, there's this collectible. It's like, okay, it's a one of a kind. Like, how valuable is this one of a kind? And you start to get into these collections. Like, you can't get like the best thing straight out the gate. You have to work your way up to it. You're probably going to end up with a number of different things you're probably not going to use. And if you do, it's going to be here or there, or maybe it is something that's every day, but it's just not the top.
Interesting. So there's a collectability, there's an exclusivity built in. I really like that. It's really unique, and I've no other luxury brands like you might go to say a watchmaker or not a watchmaker, a watch retailer who sells Rolexes,
Mhm.
and they only have a few there. I know sometimes you can't even buy a Rolex. They have ones to display, but you got to get on the waiting list to get whatever type of Rolex you want. And so, or maybe they only have a few in stock, and if you want to buy one that
Mhm.
day, your options are limited, and you can't just get any model, any color scheme you want. So that's really interesting.
Exactly. And on that same note, a lot of the stuff that's going on with that is that because of the exclusivity, there's a psychological approach of like, okay, if you're wearing this, you're now seen as, call it elite or call it whatever you want. It's like there's a separation of like I was able to. This is something that I earned, right? There's a psychological barrier that is, of like, okay, well, you bought Hermes, and now you have luxury goods from them that someone else wasn't able to get. So you have invested, you have done the time, and it shows that a bunch of different other factors from a social aspect. So it's very interesting from a psychological point of view and a buyer persona that it's saying, hey, we understand who you are, but if you really want something very nice, you've got to put in the time.
Yeah, yeah, you got to be loyal to our brand, which is a really interesting moat. Um, but it reminds me of something else. Recently, I actually sent you this video. It's Alex Hermosi talking about some principles to make money. One of the things he says is if you can't buy it twice, maybe you shouldn't even buy it once. And what he's getting at there is that if money is an issue for you, then maybe it's not worth buying to begin with. If money is so scarce that you can't buy it twice, then you shouldn't buy it once.
This actually, it's not Hermes. This is not necessarily a luxury good, but let's talk about collection.
Yeah.
And during COVID, there was, and this is something I'm tracking as well because, frankly, I was a little kid during this era, and it's these trading cards, right?
Yeah.
And we have different collectibles. I was watching a guy that pulled a Michael Jordan card that was
Mhm.
very valuable and rare. And they get these gradings on these cards, and the short of it is, during COVID, I didn't expect this, but during COVID, the price of these collectibles actually started to skyrocket, specifically under Pokemon, which was
Mhm.
very interesting to think through. Of like, it was like I thought those like weren't, you can't play them anymore. It's like, that was when I had a kid. Like, most people have gotten rid of them anymore. Like, I grew out of it. Like what is that? But like, you're now seeing these collectibles. There's one guy, like the creme de la creme. If, for those that don't know, the creme de la creme on those type of playing cards is the Charizard. One particular card, first edition, holographic, whatever, yada yada, and it's got to be pristine. There's a guy that's collected 25% of those in the marketplace, and he is actively spending his money on all these like packs that have not been opened yet, and
Mhm.
is either destroying them or ruining the grading just so the cards that he has goes up in value.
That's an interesting and great idea. It reminds me of diamonds. I mean, the Bear family owns
Hmm.
a ton of diamond mines, and they hold. They control that market very, very, very much. And so, diamonds are. Well, who knows how many are actually out there? Who how many actually exist? But there's only so many released into the market each year, and so that's how the the diamond market is partially controlled and manipulated.
Exactly. And on that same note, we have gold. And I'm going to use this as the last example. There is an estimate that's out there. I don't know necessarily know if it's true or not, because you have to dig gold up to be able to know how much is actually in the marketplace and if it's actually there. But based on surveys, they're saying that about, or they think somewhere in the neighborhood of about 80% of the gold has already been dug up.
Mm,
I just saw this yesterday, that 80% of the gold is dug up. So what does that mean? 20% left, and the gold that's currently on the market is probably going to continue to go up because that's a precious resource. There's only so much there. And so I think the next thing I want to talk about, Kyle, is we've talked about Hermes, we've talked about collectibles, we've talked about now that diamonds and gold, and those resources. Let's talk about the businesses and real problems that a lot of these plays, where they become issues, and for not only them as a business and their revenue, but also their stakeholders.
yeah, sounds great. Let's go there.
Perfect. The big thing is, so let's say for instance I'm Hermes. What are so we have to think about, from a pros and cons list of like, if we do X, we're giving up this Y. Okay, because the reality is that I can't just go on Amazon, or at least not right now. Maybe I can go and buy a Hermes tie, but for the bag, maybe the bag that I want, I can't just go to Amazon or a typical retailer and expect to be able to pick up, my bag of choice. Maybe I
Right.
go to China and I go and get a knockoff bag with no logo on there of what they're actually doing at a fraction of the cost, but it's not Hermes. It's someone else that decided to make the bag that looks similar.
Right.
So the question is then, if these bags are exclusive, what's the risk? I would say the risk, or at least my view on that from just Hermes alone, the risk is that you have someone ripping it off. You have intellectual property issues, and it goes back to what we talked about yesterday about the intellectual property issues, and that it's not made on a global scale. It's done for like the United States, or where it was originated. And who's to say now that it's public knowledge that I can't just go rip it off
Right.
and design the bag and just go and make it myself? And it's like, yeah, it's pretty darn close. Works for me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that's an interesting aspect that like I mean, I think any luxury brand is going to, like that is their moat is like the scarcity, the limited exclusivity of it, but that's also the issue of like somebody could always copy it, make something similar, and so yeah, you might not have the exact, brand name or whatever, but you would
Hmm.
have something substantially similar. I mean, that's a lot of watches. There's, now there's this common thing. They're called homages. So it's a very classic, popular style of watch, and now lots of people make it. It's not just Omega or Rolex or Hublot or whatever watch they're, the style that they make. Um, Now there's all these other homage watches that are doing the same kind of fit and finish, the same type of overall design, and selling it for a fraction of the cost.
Exactly. And on that same note, it's like, okay, I have the luxury good here that's branded and a luxury good over here that someone, knocked off that's not the same. It's like, what's the actual difference between the two?
Hmm.
Well, the reality and the difference is the status symbol
Correct.
and the branding and the persona behind it because and this actually brings up and I'll just use this as a separate example. um, this was many years ago. Okay. North Face was the big thing at this time. Okay. This is the mid 2000s here. When I was much younger, North Face was the thing that you needed to buy. You wore the North Face,
Right.
and that worked. And then now we've got Patagonia and etc. Since then, but at the time it was North Face, and we like when I was in high school, there was this knockoff brand. We had North Face and South Butt.
That's right.
North Face and
I
South Butt.
remember this. I
And it
remember
was an
this.
actual brand that came out, and they basically made the exact same thing as North Face, the jacket that everyone loved, and then plopped South Butt on there.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the same logo inverted, basically. I remember this. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, okay, well, are they LLC'd in the United States, or are they somewhere else and they're just selling and distributing it? It's like, can I send a cease and desist letter? It's like, I need you to desist from distribution of this and quit selling it. And it's like, you're ruining our brand because it's so close to the actual brand. And a lot of times those brand logos is what people see. If I saw it upside down, I'm like, oh, it's North Face. Oh, well, it's not actually North Face. It's this
South
other
Butt.
brand. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing I'll say with that. One, I think that imitation is still the highest form of flattery. You kind of know you made it when other people are trying to rip you off. But I also would say that that is a signal to businesses that they need to continue to innovate. They need to be a market leader, not a market follower. And so don't necessarily rest on your laurels about this great thing that you've
Hmm.
produced, but continue to innovate and make it better, or figure out other needs that you can address for your customer base that will continue to build your moat.
Exactly. So again, this goes back to the original reason that things were branded in the first place is cattle. You go back right to the origins of it. It's like, okay, well, I branded this on my cattle. This is who I am. This is what I do. It's not someone else's cattle. It's like literally there's a brand on the animal. And we have this branding if that people know and trust, and that if it's that brand, it's like, okay, I know and I have expectations of what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And if I'm buying a ripoff, there's not going to be things like guarantees. There's not going to be things like customer service. I'm not going to have the people that would maybe replace the product if it got messed up. Um, And there's that relational aspect. When you're looking at a ripoff, there's not anything that continues it. It's just the promise we delivered one good and that's it.
Yeah,
And
and
are they
it
going to
might not
say
even be,
long tail?
it might not even be the same quality or the same materials. I'm thinking of some. We've been talking about a lot of physical products, but let's shift to like a service business, a business that has a very good reputation. It's very well known. That let's just say for instance it's a CPA firm, and that CPA firm is really known for taking care of their clients, delivering really good results for them,
Hmm.
you know, taking, there's other people who can do your taxes, but do they have the same level of customer care? Do they have the same level of service? Um, like there's other people who may, be a lawyer, but they might never call you back. Where this really well established, good reputation law firm, they might be known that they listen to their clients. They call them back in a short amount of time. They hear what their issues are. They walk them through so they know what the next step is in their case, whatever it might be. Um, you earn a reputation, and it should be guarded. And I've seen people, you can ruin a reputation very quickly, and it's very hard to get it back once you do. And so, a reputation is something that you really need to guard and keep your standards high and not cut corners, because it takes a long time to build and it can be destroyed very quickly. Like a lot of things, it's
Yep.
way harder to build than to destroy, instantly or close to it.
Yeah, and on that same note, there's at least two major ways that there are more, but two major ways that I've personally seen work very well for a business, especially if they have brand compromised issues.
Mm.
One is that you got to get on the PR in some way, shape, or form. The person that's caused the issue needs to repent. We call it repent and change. Be like, look, this is what happened. I was wrong. And basically, um, um, I think it's Japan, if I'm not mistaken. They had for
Mhm.
their politicians or and other people in culture, when they have a shameful act that happened, they basically go away for like 10 years.
Mm.
Everyone forgets that they exist, and basically they've gone and repented of their sins, so to speak, and then they come back into the same arena and say, "Look, it's been 10 years or however long. Everyone's forgotten about me. I've gotten clean, so to speak, and I'm back. Like I'm going to do this the right way." And I think people respect the amount of time and attention that's on something. And when it's not a matter of if, the reality is that the leaders out there are not perfect people, and they're
Yeah.
expecting those people to be perfect people. And it's like, what do you do when, not if, but when you mess up as a leader? Because the reality is you are. So the question, so the two major ones before I forget. So the two major ones is to repent, number one, and either go away for a good bit, put someone else in charge, and like handle it from a PR perspective, like give it some time, and like work through that and be very genuine about your turning around process and saying, look, this wasn't right, or this is what happened. We're going to make corrections. I'm going to put a lot of time and attention on this. Like I understand this is the repercussions of my actions, and I'm going to change. The set, and then so maybe let's talk about that. I'll kick it to you, and then I'll tell my second one here in a second.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense, and talk about like, okay, this is what I was intending on, and this is how it got wrong, and I see my the issue that I played in this, and I see a lot of leaders not take the blame for things, and that just continues to ruin their credibility. And you need to talk about, okay, what did we learn, and what types of guardrails are we going to put in place? What types of behavior are we going to do or not do so we get better outcomes in the future? And I think a lot of people, I like the example that you
Hmm.
brought up about the kind of the cultural um, expectation to have this time of I'm going to call it exile,
Yeah,
where they go away, and that's part of the process of like saying like, hey, I've done wrong, and I shouldn't be here any longer, and so whatever that it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go into that exile, but you do need to address it in a way that's satisfactory and that's meaningful and that people can get behind.
exactly. There's the phrase that we're all human, but that doesn't excuse behavior, though.
Right. And like we were talking about earlier with failure, Thomas Edison learned how to build a light bulb 400 ways or something like that, but do it the wrong way, and then he eventually learned how to build the light bulb the right way. And so the same principle, like you can learn a lot from failure. Failure is not necessarily a bad thing. Failure does need to be managed well, and just because failure, you can learn some things you can't learn any other way, doesn't mean you want to fail or you should try to fail. But it's difficult to learn some things without failing, and I see so many people they're afraid of failing, and so they just don't do anything.
Uh, exactly. And this brings me to my second, the second way that you can change your reputation.
Okay.
And so, um, this is not recommended. I'm not actually a very big fan of this method, but yet I've actually seen brands do this time and time again, multiple times. Um, I'm not going to name the brands on there, but there is a big financial company that was based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, had not great reputation across that had not great reputation. And what happened, and what they did is they took an acquisition that they made. They made an acquisition of another company that had a amazing reputation. That
Hmm.
company that they acquired had an absolutely stellar reputation, and then they rebranded as that company, and so they're now moonlighting as that company, and then they did a bunch of restructuring efforts to get rid of the issues, quote unquote, that they had before. So they are said, "Hey, we're going away, goodbye." But this person, we've acquired them, but we're now them. And,
Ooh.
and I've actually seen this time and time and time again. And we're going to start to see different acquisitions of that. But there's also the reverse of that. It's like you go, someone doesn't have a great reputation, the stock dips, and that allows you to buy in and say, hey, we have a great reputation. We're going to get the product and everything out of it, and we're going to strip the bad out of it, and we're going to use this product and make it either an internal tool or something that we can make better, because the reality is that they found the customer base, they found the people that are willing to pay, and they have a repeatable model that they can say, hey, we're going to acquire this. We know we're going to have repeatable revenue here. It's predictable, and we're going to go ahead and acquire that business and use them for what they're worth, to make our product better, because it's part of the mode but different. But the amount of work that's going to be required is just not justifiable. So we're just going to buy them instead.
Mm. That is really interesting, and I think we should have an episode very soon about exit planning and making your business sellable and what goes into that. Because I've had lots of conversations recently around that topic. A lot of business owners have been very interested in, you know, getting their business ready for market and getting prepared where they're in the best position. So let's put a pin in that, and we'll come back to that. That'll be a future episode. That's probably like 10 episodes, to be totally frank.
Yeah.
There's so many issues there, but I wanted to bring up something before we get too far along. Is Costco, and so before we
Well,
get into Costco, leave
go
us
ahead.
a chat, leave us a message in the chat if you have a question, a business issue. We want to speak to it. So leave your questions in the chat. We'll answer them live. Were you going to say something else, Sam, or can I get into Costco?
Well, before we do, for those that don't know who we are, we're Chief Go Officers. We combined AI and artificial intelligence with human execution for businesses. From a leadership standpoint, we have a team dedicated to be able to deliver exceptional results, backed by many, many, many years of experience using our AI as a directional model of what you need to actually do in your business. So it provides clarity, it provides direction, so you are hitting those goals, so you are getting to your vision, so you can eventually exit your company in a repeatable way. We've done this time and time again for different businesses, and we know the model works. So for those that don't know, head to chiefgoofficers.com, and then if you want to find out more about the Moat, we have it a link in the description. Goes to our website. Get your free growth audit to know more about your business, and I would love to have a call with you to discuss more whatever your business issues are if you're not able to get on the show. So that said, would love to hear from you, Kyle. Anyone in the chat yet?
No messages currently, but we'll see. So yeah, the way I like to think about it, Sam, is solve the right problems in the right order, the things that are going to make the biggest impact, and don't solve symptoms, solve the root issue. So yeah, let's get into Costco. So recently, Costco held at a 92.1 percent in fiscal fiscal year Q1 2026. They dropped just slightly in the last 7 years. However, they raised their fees, their membership fees, and they were able to achieve a 2.68 billion increase in annual recurring revenue. This is also they were able to they got an operating lift for their income of $5 billion on retail margins. So wanted to highlight this as a recurring membership fee tied to genuine value is a promise that is a durable moat that people will continue to buy this renewing this and renew their membership if they know time and time again that they're going to really get value from the brand. I bring this up because I'm a user of Costco. I love Costco. It has its limitations, but there are lots of good reasons why I shop at Costco. And so I wanted to bring this up. I thought it was a really interesting example that people are just so they renew their membership so often, and even a price hike in membership, it really didn't matter.
Correct. And on that same piece, the piece that you're reporting about, Costco reported a total revenue of $275.24 billion, which represents the 8.17% increase from the previous year as a total. And then you talked about the extra five some odd $1 billion generated from membership fees. So on that same piece, it's like, well, what if Costco, it's like there's always these what ifs when you're thinking about like things like investments, and but like from a business perspective, not financial perspective, but from a business perspective, investing in your business, or at least like putting your time and attention into certain aspects of your business allows you to build those strong moats. Now, there's always things like discretionary income of like, hey, if it's a bad year, we're not going to have an increase in revenue, like because there's not as much discretionary income. That person's not going to buy that play set or that extra TV or the computer or like all these extra groceries that they may have not done, or maybe they're not going to have the big barbecue like they did last year because they don't have the discretionary spending. But from a membership fee standpoint, I think it's also important to note that the original founder of Costco and the food, they previously tried to figure out ways to increase the revenue, and they're like, yeah, we looked at the food, we're going to increase the prices of the food. It's so low, it's like we're basically losing money. Well, what happened to your loss leader? You had this loss leader that brought a ton of people in there, and I mean, I could buy super cheap food. I've bought many a Costco. I'm not even a Costco member, but I've bought many a Costco food just because I can, because I like a cheap hot dog or a slice of pizza because I'm on the run and I'm like, hey, I could probably just go in and get something, or whatnot. So
Yeah, and no, and I think one of the interesting things about Costco is they have a really good customer service department. They have maybe they're not making a lot on the physical products they sell, but that's a value to me as a consumer that I need these things and they provide a good price. The like my family is gluten free. My wife has celiac disease, and so we have to buy certain things, and Costco carries a lot of those things. So there's some really interesting ways they serve their customers, and then they're able to increase their price of their membership. Like membership, that's just the license to shop at their store. Like that's a hundred. Like
correct, yeah.
that's pure profit. There's it's just, hey, now you have the ability to shop here. So that's not a physical product at all. That they make a lot of money off of just basically
Access.
selling, yeah, access, exactly, access. And so they made a lot of money, and yeah, maybe they're not making a lot of money on their food, but they're making lots and lots of money, billions of dollars on access.
And there it's not just Costco, because you've got Sam's Club, you've got BJ's, and then we have Costco, which is it's like, hey, what flavor of store are we going to today? But in the same way, it's like they make these, you pay the membership access fee, and now I'm like, okay, well, man, I've got like wholesale things that I didn't get access to, and I'm like, well, yeah, I'm probably gonna, like one of my more famous ones was like, I'm a sauce guy. I love sauce on, like, like no matter what I'm eating. Like I have
Yeah,
other
me
people
me
that
too. Me too.
I
I'm
have
a
other
sauce
people
guy
that are
too.
like, I don't want any sauce on that. I want to eat it as is. I'm like, cool. I'll eat like a part of it as is because I really want to taste like the quality of the food of what's made. But I'm like, hey, what about this sauce? I wonder how this tastes with this, and so I like to mix and match. So, my famous thing is like so I used to be a Sam's Club member. I would go into Sam's Club and I would go and buy the wholesale like sauces, and I'm like, or seasonings, or maybe I wanted to go and barbecue, and I'm like, hey, I'm probably going to use most of the seasoning anyway. I might as well just buy the wholesale piece. I'm just going to use it all anyway. And
Right.
then I'm now justifying myself to go make the next purchase because I've got all these spices. Well, what am I going to do with the spices? I might as well buy a Boston butt to be able to go and smoke, get some pulled pork,
That's
or
right.
maybe a huge rack of ribs, or a large juicy steak, that justifies the other purchase.
Yeah, I remember one time they had a sale on Frank's Red Hot sauce, and I was like, I love Frank's Red Hot sauce. I put it
Yeah.
on all sorts of stuff, and I remember I bought a crazy amount. Like I'm gonna use it, and I still have Frank's Red Hot sauce from like years ago, and thankfully, that's something that doesn't really spoil. It's mostly vinegar. And anyways, the point is, they influenced my behavior, and we got to chat. Ralph brought up that they refuse to raise the price of the hot dog combo, and they know that's one of the most popular items. That's one of the things people come there for, and they're known for, and so they continue to leave that price super low. They're probably losing money.
Well,
I'm sure they are.
they're definitely either break even or losing money because it's a loss leader. In
Right.
fact, it's a very interesting example of the original owner of, like, in social media, like putting them on blast of saying, "Hey, this is not how things are done. You are changing it back now."
Mm,
Um, and we're seeing brands do similar things of like, either like like either something from social media of like, hey, we did this, and it's like, hey, we don't really like that. Okay, well, we're gonna go back.
Mhm.
and basically retracting their change. And doing that like it really depends on the situation because it can either really hurt your brand and the decisions that you're making, or it builds customer confidence temporarily. But it's really one of those things of like fool me once, versus fool me twice.
Yeah.
So you really can't just go and do one thing or the other. You really need to stick to your guns. That said, what I will say is like, um, you really don't want to pull that stunt more than once or twice, especially if you're in a leadership position. And because then you have issues that come up, like from a public company, issues from the board. It's like you got shareholder value issues, and it's like now you're probably on the exit if it's not a strike three process. It's probably a one or a two strike process. You make the change, it's not good, and you have that issue. You might make it through if you've been very consistent, but you start doing a second or third one, and they're already looking for the next person.
Yeah, just to add to that, it's a lot of these things, these decisions get made, and they're not talked about. They're just rolled out, and it's like, oh man, they changed it. I don't like this anymore. Where it would have been far better, and it wouldn't have been such a negative impact if you had just talked about it a bit and got some messaging around why you're making the change that you are making. Um, and some decisions are just bad,
Yeah.
and I don't think you can out message them or make them soften the blow at all. But there's lots of different issues that you can talk about and be honest, and some people will be sympathetic to it, but I see a lot of times it's like, oh well, we don't want to have this uncomfortable conversation, we don't want to talk about this issue, so um, we're not. We're just gonna like we're
Exactly.
just gonna put it out there. We're just gonna make the change. Yeah. Ralph brings up new Coke. New Coke was one strike. Yeah, not a great idea. I agree. Coca-Cola is an interesting one, especially because that's a brand that's been around for so long. They still have that unique flavor that nobody else, people have
Mhm.
tried to copy it. They've gotten close, but they've never replicated it. And so that's an interesting idea of a moat right there. And the really interesting piece is, that's not patented. That's a trade secret. And I think more people are going to move, and our people are understanding what a, a trade secret is and why it's valuable and how it's different than some of these other, some of these other intellectual property that's out there.
Exactly. And as a final closing comment on the piece with Coke, and you've actually seen a lot of reformulation with those in the drink industry too, where it's like no longer do you put. I mean, the reality is that when Coke was first invented, as well as other drinks, had a little bit of drugs in it. I'm not.
Yeah.
I know we're live and we're on YouTube and a few others on social media, so I'm not going to say which ones, but easy to find. But they had to eventually reformulate because it was not healthy to have that. But it did create clientele that kept coming back to it because they were addicted, not a healthy
Yeah.
addicted. And there's certain issues that they're and headwinds that they're facing with like things like dye, and some of the sugar that's in there of
Yeah.
like,
Right.
hey,
High
we're
fructose
pushing.
corn syrup.
Correct, yeah, etc. And so with that, I think you're going to start to see like pushes to more of these healthy drinks. You've got poppy, for instance.
Oh, I love poppy.
And my point
Yeah.
is that like they changed that again, that's for maybe a different live show, but the fact is that they came up with this formulation that's their own, and then they came out with it, and no one was not a lot of people were buying it, and they cut like they changed all the packaging for it and rechanged the marketing, and all of a sudden they shot up through the roof.
Yep.
So like
Yep.
that's one of the good ones, and then they're prime for prime for a buyout. When you're doing that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Poppy is a really neat example we should talk about, because they that was it started with somebody just basically coming up with a apple cider vinegar drink that was more easy to drink and enjoy, and it turned into a $1 billion brand. That's a really interesting story. I'd love to explore that a bit more. Um, all right,
Right.
Sam, let's do a
We're
rapid
at
fire.
time. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
we only
yeah. I was gonna say rapid fire.
okay. So, time, money, or people? What do you think Costco's issue with that they're facing right now? Time, money, or people? What do you think is the play for them?
So, I mean, they had the increase in revenue, and the real issue is that it's like, can they continue with the increase in revenue, right?
Mm.
As you alluded to, they had this great customer service, and they were able to increase the money because of the quality that they were actually delivering. Because you have your promise, then you have your delivery of that promise.
Yep.
Um, and for Costco, I don't think it's a time issue. I don't think it's a money issue. I think it's a people issue that they need to continue pushing on, because the better service they have, and the better focus that they're able to have on both their people, can create an experience for those that are going to Costco, following up with those at Costco. Hey, let's say for instance I worked at Costco. Hey, this is Sam from Costco. Like, I noticed that you checked out with this, and you didn't check out with this. Like, is there a way that I can like help you? Is there like there's something that's missing? That you were hoping to have, or
Right.
things like that nature, where you're having that relationship or on the way out, or maybe during the store process. So I think focusing on the people with that is going to allow them to continue to generate even greater revenue and have even more stickier customers and clientele. I don't think they're experiencing an issue, but I think they're going to experience a people issue if they don't continue to focus on that quality.
Yeah, I would agree, and I guess that's why Costco is very well known for, like, they pay their people well, they take care of them a lot. They don't have a lot of people leaving the business, so they have very little employee churn, and so um, I would agree with you that, like we were talking about Amazon yesterday, where they're like, we're not going to build AI,
Yep.
a infrastructure to accommodate for AI agents because it's a human experience. I don't buy that one bit. Amazon's not a human experience. Costco is very much a human experience. You go there, and if you're coming into contact with people who are grumpy, people who are not happy where they work, that's going to lower the client experience. They're gonna if people are not being taken care of, say in customer service, that's going to continue to lower the customer experience. If they can't get their cheap hot dogs, that's going to lower the customer experience. So there's all these things they really need to think about people and how to get the right people into their business to continue on, and how to retain them long term, and how they are going to deliver a really exceptional experience for their customer base.
Exactly. And on that same note, this was, I don't know if it was Costco that tried this, but there was another similar one, but that they tried to have flights. So typically, like, alcoholic beverages, talking about flights, but it was a flight of food. It's like, hey, you get yourself a hot dog, a hamburger, and some chicken wings or whatever, and say, hey, we're gonna line five up, and you get to do like basically your taste test, and from like kind of like a topic experience almost, which I thought was interesting, and that actually didn't go anywhere for a number of these different places. But I do think, like having some sort of experience where it does make sense from a people standpoint could really make sense, of like maybe hosting like a hot dog eating contest for like hot dogs. Like Joey Chestnut or Kobayashi is like literally sitting there at Costco doing like the Costco hot dogs. I would come and watch, you know.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting like event-based marketing to bring people to Costco. That's I like that idea. I would be open to the idea of a flight of food, and that's an interesting idea to like, hey, there's this thing that you probably haven't tried that now we'll give it to you cheap. It's a free sample. You know, they do free samples a lot at Costco, but
Hmm.
like, hey, this is our food court flight. Here you go. Um, now you know more about what our menu is like and how delicious our food is and how cheap it is. I actually really like that idea. Yeah.
Building moats.
Yeah, all about building moats. Well, this has been the Moat, and we've loved having you. If you have any questions, please show up to a live stream, leave them in the comments. If you would like to have a question answered, but maybe you want to do it in a private manner. There is an opportunity for you to book a session with us, and we can talk about your business in a private setting. So we'd love to have you there and keep building that moat.
Perfect. And I'm Sam Robinson. Again, these are real businesses, real numbers, real stakes. So make sure you're building a business that your competitors can't copy, take, or kill. So until then,